Welcome back, guys. So something a little bit different today. What I've got here is a little shed find. So whilst rummaging around in my brew shed, found this bottle that had kind of got pushed to the back, and I'm pretty sure I don't know what's in it. It's a turbo cider. So I haven't brewed a turbo cider for well over a year, so this is over a year old. I don't have a record of it in my notes, so I know it's at least a year old. It's a turbo cider, and I'm pretty sure this is a turbo cider that I dry hopped with Cascade, because I think that was kind of like the last batch that I did. So if you're unfamiliar with turbo ciders and never done them, basically a turbo cider is made out of apple juice from a carton in this case, which I fermented with cider yeast, which came from Cross My Loof. So it's a proper cider yeast. Some people use bread yeast and all sorts of weird and wonderful things, but I did a bit of experimentation, and for my personal tastes, I prefer cider yeast. So you just basically put the yeast with the juice. If you ferment it out, it comes out to about 6%. Some people dilute it. I just kind of let it go. And you know, there's all sorts of kind of Facebook groups and stuff like that that are dedicated to turbo cider, and people put what in the UK we call squash, which would be something like a cordial type thing. People put that in it, but they tend to be full of sugar, and they just ferment out, and they just make a stronger drink. And I've done it once or twice, and it turns out so strong that it's not really an enjoyable drink. So this is going to be, well, we're in new grounds now because I never left it for more than a few months. So this is probably what we consider a vintage turbo cider. So it's going to be an interesting taster, this one. So I've had it in the fridge for a couple of days. Feels a little bit squashy, so I don't know actually how carbonated it is or how much carbonation has remained in these plastic bottles, but let's give it a go. So the lid was pretty loose there, gave a little hiss. I guess with cider it doesn't really matter. Now, first thing I can smell is this is definitely the dry hopped one. So I dry hopped with Cascades, gave a completely different flavour in the turbo cider than it would do in beer. And it's kind of almost enhanced the appley smell, strangely enough. It's really nice, cidery, kind of almost citrusy smell. I was saying, it doesn't really matter too much. This is a cider, so we can drink this one flat. It's hardly any carbonation. It's not surprising, considering the lid was hardly on. Hopefully that means it hasn't spoiled in the bottle. There's a little bit of carbonation. It's crystal clear, as you would imagine. Cider being in the bottle for over a year. Yeah, well, let's give it a go. It's got, like, strangely enough, it's giving it almost like a pear smell to it. Like sort of, yeah, pear, sort of a really ripe pear smell. You can definitely tell it's a cider. It smells quite nice. And from what I remember from the dry hops, the Cascade really gave it a nice citrusy edge to it, and it really complemented the cider taste. So not what you'd expect from that kind of, you know, a beer hop in a cider, but it is a thing. People do it, so I thought I'd have a go, and it turned out quite well. So I was quite pleased to find this at the back of my shed. So let's have a taste. Well, it's dry. Well, it's almost mouth-puckeringly dry, but these tend to ferment out really dry anyway. People back sweeten them with sweeteners, because obviously any kind of sugar just ferments out, and it does tend to ferment out quite dry. So I'd almost forgotten how dry these are. It's not bad at all. Not bad at all. I'm not sure there's much of that hop flavour that was in there originally. It's nice. I mean, it's definitely, you can detect it's not just a plain turbo cider, there's definitely some edge, something in there. But you know, as you'd expect with any kind of hopped beer, that the flavours tend to diminish over time. So I guess that's what's happened here anyway. It's really clean tasting. You probably wouldn't know it was a turbo cider. I don't know. It's definitely softened the edges of it, that's for sure, over time. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. It hasn't turned to vinegar over that time, so that's pretty good. And it tastes like a fairly reasonable cider. I gave up making them because, well, you know, taste changed. I started making more beer and I enjoyed making the hoppy beers. Didn't really have much time for drinking cider, but it's a nice drink to drink in the summer, I find. But you can tell it's quite alcoholic. I'm sure I'll probably be going rosy before I got to the bottom of this one, but it's not bad. I don't think you know, the people from the West Country down in the cider country will be you know, giving me any accolades for this, but for a turbo cider, which probably cost me about, I don't know, £3 to make, 5 litres, maybe less than that. It's really not bad, but you know, I've had to wait a year for it to get to this stage. But you know, I don't know if it's worth the hassle. But yeah, it's certainly a good bonus find in the brew shed, so I'm happy with that. So a little bit different to what I normally do. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I'm enjoying this. Cheers, guys.